The illusion of suffering, how our minds create unnecessary pain. You receive an email notification. Your heart skips a beat. It's from your employer. You hesitate before opening it, convinced it contains bad news. Thoughts spiral. What if I made a mistake? What if I'm being fired? How will I pay my bills? Your mind races through worst-case scenarios, painting a bleak future before you even read a single word. Then, you open the email. It's just a routine update. The fear, the anxiety, the stress, none of it was real. You suffered, not because of reality, but because of your imagination. Seneca's words, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality," capture a fundamental truth about the human condition. Our minds construct fears that often never materialize. We live through pain that never actually happens. But why does this happen? Why does our brain insist on making us suffer before anything even occurs? And most importantly, how can we train our minds to break free from this cycle of unnecessary suffering? Our ability to imagine is a double-edged sword. It allows us to plan, anticipate, and prepare for the future. However, this same ability can turn against us, creating endless scenarios of disaster. Evolution plays a role in this. Our ancestors, living in unpredictable environments, had to be hyper-aware of potential threats. A rustle in the bushes might have been just the wind, but assuming it was a predator increased their chances of survival. Today, this instinct remains, but instead of physical dangers, we apply it to social situations, careers, and personal anxieties. We worry about things that have not happened, magnify small problems, and anticipate failures that never come. How many times have you dreaded a confrontation, only to realize later that it wasn't as bad as you imagined? How often have you assumed the worst about what others think of you, only to find out they weren't even concerned? One of the most common examples is public speaking. The mere thought of standing in front of an audience can trigger overwhelming fear. We picture ourselves forgetting words, trembling, being ridiculed. In our minds, the crowd is harsh, judgmental, waiting for a mistake. But when we actually step onto the stage, reality is different. People are often supportive, more focused on the message than on our nervousness. Even if we do make mistakes, they are quickly forgotten. The suffering occurs before the event, in the endless mental rehearsals of failure, rather than during the actual speech. This principle applies in relationships as well. A delayed text, a change in tone, a brief reply, suddenly the mind starts crafting scenarios. Did I say something wrong? Are they upset? The mind amplifies uncertainty, making us feel emotions disconnected from reality. Often, when we finally talk to the person, we realize there was no problem at all. Financial worries follow the same pattern. A small mistake at work leads to thoughts of being fired, struggling to find a job, losing everything. We let our fears spiral, experiencing in our minds the suffering of unemployment before anything has even happened. Yet, in reality, the chances of such extreme outcomes are often low. Even when difficulties arise, we usually find ways to adapt, survive, and move forward. Throughout history, philosophers have explored this pattern of unnecessary suffering. The Stoics, particularly Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, taught that much of our distress comes not from external events, but from our perception of them. They practiced premeditation malorum, the meditation of evils, not to dwell in fear, but to train themselves to remain calm when difficulties arose. By expecting hardship with a rational mind, they reduced the power of imagined suffering. Instead of letting fear take control, they prepared themselves mentally and accepted that life would bring challenges. But they did not need to suffer twice, once in their imagination and once in reality. Buddhism offers a similar insight. The Buddha taught that suffering comes not from reality itself, but from attachment, not just to desires, but also to fears. The mind clings to worst-case scenarios, treating them as truths. But just as a cloud drifts across the sky, our thoughts are fleeting. The key is to observe them without being consumed by them. Meditation helps cultivate this awareness, allowing us to recognize anxious thoughts without letting them dominate our emotions. Modern psychology echoes these ancient teachings. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, helps people challenge irrational fears by examining their thoughts critically. Many worries lose their grip when analyzed logically. For example, if someone fears failing at a job interview, they might ask themselves, "What's the worst that could happen?" Often, the worst-case scenario isn't as catastrophic as the mind makes it seem. By questioning our assumptions, we realize how often we create suffering that does not exist. This pattern is so common that it affects nearly every aspect of life. Athletes feel it before a competition, doubting their abilities even after years of training. Artists feel it before releasing their work, fearing rejection that may never come. Entrepreneurs hesitate before starting a business, imagining failure before even taking the first step. In all these cases, the greatest obstacle is not reality itself, but the mind's tendency to predict disaster. So how can we apply this to our daily lives? The first step is awareness. The next time worry creeps in, ask yourself, is this happening or am I imagining it? Challenge your thoughts. Are they based on facts or just assumptions? Most importantly, practice presence. Engage with reality as it is, not as your mind constructs it. Focus on the present moment instead of drowning in hypothetical fears. Whenever you feel overwhelmed by anxiety, remind yourself, most of what you fear will never happen. Even if it does, you are more capable than you think. You have overcome challenges before, and you will do it again. What about you? Have you ever suffered more in your imagination than in reality? How do you handle unnecessary fear and anxiety? And what small step could you take today to stay rooted in the present moment? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you're not subscribing to the Usafi channel, you're probably never going to see us again. But if you are, then congratulations, you're growing every day.